This is the Horn Takes podcast. You're very rough around the edges. Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. The 119th Red River Shootout is upon us, folks. It is Red River Shootout Eve. For shit I get really excited about, I throw an extra Eve on there 2 days early, just so I know that it's coming. I do that for Christmas. I love Christmas. And I do it for Red River Shootout. And I probably do it for all kinds of other cool shit too, but we're headed that way tonight. As soon as the workday ends, we'll be at the State Fair of Texas all afternoon tomorrow after our Prediction Friday show, which will go off around 12 noon. Haven't really decided whether I want to do that one maybe a tick early. Give us more time at the fair, more corn dogs, more beer, more funnel cakes, more fried deliciousness. Today we'll dive deep into a statistical analysis of the matchup between number 12 Oklahoma, number 3 Texas. And then we'll talk some more about this tunnel. I love the tunnel for those of y'all that haven't figured that out yet. The tunnel is pretty neat. It's pretty special to me. Got a cool treat for you guys today about the tunnel. Before we jump into the show today, we got a new format for the show. Those of you that follow religiously have probably figured this out. Those of you that may be popping in new or watching this for the first time new, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 12 noon Central Time, we go live. Monday's Exaggeration Monday, where we just kind of break down what we saw while we were watching the game live for the Texas game. A lot of it's probably wrong. A lot of it is definitely alcohol-fueled thoughts. It's definitely emotionally charged, emotionally fueled thoughts about the game. Then on Tuesday, we'll come back. We'll do an after-action review where we actually rewatch the game, have had time to settle down, have looked at it with a more objective eye, and we kind of figure out whether our drunk self and our more analytical self was right or wrong. Who was the most right, the rightestest, if you will. Thursday is Deep Dive Thursday. That's what's today. We're going to get statistical about OU and Texas today. And then Friday's Prediction Thursday, we'll have our Trace Otra games predictions. And obviously, we'll have a prediction about the weekend's Texas Longhorn game. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Listen to the podcast at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Here we go. It's the Deep Dive. Oklahoma Land Thieves edition. Number 12 OU at number 3 Texas. Sean's got some big questions about this game. I've got big questions for every game. My number one big question for this game is, does Steve Sarkisian step up and seize the moment? To me, this is a big time, put your boot on somebody's neck and push down moment for Sark and the Texas Longhorns. They ran Oklahoma out of the stadium last year, 49-0. This is a chance to start a streak in this series for Steve Sarkisian and for the Texas Longhorns. I think there's always possible recruiting implications with this game. Texas is the home team this year. They will be hosting the recruits. There was a lot of stories last year about the Oklahoma recruits leaving their side of the field and going to the Texas side of the field as the game went on. Don't know how true that is. I couldn't verify it. I couldn't corroborate it. But there was a whole lot of chatter about that happening. And then I think bonus question for this question is, does Sark truly understand the gravity of this rivalry now? He's talked a lot about, finally kind of understanding what it means to be Texas and that you're going to get every team's best shot. He's been in this game twice now. Does he really understand the gravity of what Texas and OU means to the states, to the universities, to the fans, to the State Fair, to the Cotton Bowl? Does he get all that stuff? Big opportunity for Sark. Whose defense breaks? You look at these defenses, statistically, they're both really stingy. This game is usually close. 8 of the last 10 of these games have been one-possession games, and 3 of those were walk-offs. So big defensive plays, I mean, any kind of big play in a game like that is gonna mean the difference in the game, or could mean the difference in the game. But I really feel like it's these defenses that have an opportunity this year to make some plays. I think one of them will. I think one of the defenses on Saturday is going to make a play at some point that's very impactful to the outcome of this game. But which one is it going to be? Who's going to break? Question number 3, can Texas continue to dominate the trenches on both sides of the ball? They have been so good at trench warfare all season long. Really, really good on defense. Getting really, really good on offense these last few weeks. I think the ability to run the football and the ability to stop the run are just really crucial in these types of games. Historically, if you win the rushing battle in the Red River Shootout, you win the game. I saw some kind of crazy stat the other day. Texas has only lost one time when they've rushed for 200 yards. Not only is the running game demoralizing, it sucks to just line up play after play and just get beat play after play with a running game. But then it starts to open up that passing game down the field. We all know Steve Sarkisian wants to do that. Can this offensive line continue what they've been doing the last 3 weeks? Open up some space for these Texas running backs. And then on the defensive side, can they completely shut down Oklahoma's running game and make them one-dimensional? I think those are important questions. And then I had a question 4 that it just got answered for me. Is JT Sanders a go, and is he 100%? JT Sanders had 5 catches for 71 yards in this game last year. So far this season, he's 13 catches, 279 yards, and a touchdown. He's had 2 100-yard games already in 2023. Absolute matchup nightmare. Opens up the middle of the field. I had a note here to say I think he goes. I didn't think he looked too limpy as he was leaving the KU game and as they were showing him on the sidelines. So I thought he would go. We found out maybe 30 minutes ago that he absolutely will go. He's looked great in practice. So JT Sanders will be on the field for the Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers will have all of his offensive weapons at his full disposal. That's big time for this Texas offense. Man, there are so many guys to defend, so many ways this team can beat you offensively. Ryan Watts is another guy that went down in that KU game, and he is listed as a game-time decision. I don't know what that means in Steve Sarkisian speak. Sometimes coaches say he's a game-time decision when they know damn well he's not playing. Other coaches say he's a game-time decision because he legit is a game-time decision. So let's get into this deep dive. Here's a statistic you probably don't care about. Texas is 21, 22, and 2 in the Red River Shootout in my lifetime. So Saturday, we're looking to tie this thing up at 22 all. Here's one you do care about. Brent Venables has never beaten a Power 5 school from the state of Texas. And here's one you should. Texas hasn't won back-to-back games in this series since 2008 and 2009. All kinds of places to get your stats out there. I found a really good one on Twitter. This cat's name is @StatsOfWar on Twitter. Puts out all these really cool graphs. And I don't know if this is like a consortium. How do you say that word? It doesn't matter. I don't know if this is a group of guys that do this. If it's one dude, man, he puts out a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. But he puts out all these graphs every week. I guess he doesn't do it every single week. I did not see one for the Alabama game. But he puts out these graphs, and he's got all these stats on this graph. This formula of his predicts the scores. It predicts all kinds of crap, right? And so I first just randomly saw one and I pulled it down. I thought, it'll be interesting to see how accurate this is. And turns out they're really accurate so far this year. Like, kind of ridiculously accurate. Check this out. Stats of War, at Stats of War, and I forgot the guy's name, had Rice in Texas game, 35 projected points for Texas, 8 projected points for Rice. The final of that game was 38-10. Wyoming, 33 points projected for Texas, 8 projected for Wyoming. Score was 31-10. 32 Texas projected points, 16 projected points for Baylor. 38-6 was the final of that game. For the Kansas game, he had Texas 42 projected points, Kansas 18 projected points. Score of that game was 40-14. For the 0U game, he's got Texas 32 projected points and OU 25 projected points. And obviously we don't know what the outcome of that one is, but man, those are really, really close. I'm not like a super stats geek, but I'm really curious how they get all these projections and all these different ratings, and I'll probably never know, and that's okay. ESPN FPI favors Oklahoma to win this game, about 54% to 46%. It gives Oklahoma a 54% chance to win the game, Texas a 46% chance to win the game. Out in Vegas, Texas opened up as a 4.5-point favorite in this game, and that has now moved to 6.5 points. Lots of money. Lots of bets and lots of money going towards Texas early in this deal is the only explanation for that line to move that way. You look at the offenses in this game. Rushing offense, Texas has a slight edge, 191 yards per game to Oklahoma's 157 yards per game. OU has one more rushing attempt per game than Texas. Texas is averaging 5 yards per rush. Oklahoma's averaging 4 yards per rush. Passing, Oklahoma has a pretty decent edge here in yardage, 286 yards per game for Texas, 352 yards per game for Oklahoma. Oklahoma does have 172 attempts to Texas's 155. OU gains 1 more yard per attempt, but Texas gains 1 more yard per completion. Scoring offense, 11-point edge for Oklahoma. They average 47 points a game. Texas averages 36 points per game on offense. And you look at it, Texas has a clear edge in the run game. Their run differential, which to me, I made this up. I'm calling it the run differential, folks. I took all their opponents' rushing defenses and averaged them out. 148 yards per game for Texas opponents' rushing defenses. So Texas has a positive run differential of 43 yards. Oklahoma's opponents' rushing D average is 125 yards per game. So they have a positive 32 yards rushing differential. So Texas kind of owns the important stats to me from the rushing side of the house on the offense. OU, I think, has a clear edge in the passing game. Their passing differential is 114 yards. Texas's passing differential, 63 yards, both positive. And then you look at scoring. Texas's opponents on average are giving up 24 points a game. Oklahoma's are giving up 26 points a game. So Texas's scoring differential is plus 12. Oklahoma's is plus 21. So Oklahoma clearly has an advantage offensively from the passing perspective and the scoring perspective. I think it's worth noting that OU has only given up 4 sacks all season. Texas has given up 7. I said we were going to get statistical. Here we are. We're getting statistical. Defenses. Surprisingly, both of these defenses, and I don't know why I say surprisingly, but both of these defenses statistically are really, really good. I think it's probably a surprise because we haven't really seen Oklahoma or Texas have good defenses in a while. Oklahoma has been an offensive absolute juggernaut for a long time now. Going back to when Stoops was there. Texas has kind of just struggled on both sides of the ball. Now we finally get a really good Texas defense. We see an Oklahoma team coming into this game that statistically is pretty good. Rushing defense, Oklahoma, 106 yards per game. We're giving up 94 yards per game for Texas. Passing defense, Texas is giving up 196 yards per game through the air. Oklahoma, 206 through the air. Scoring defense, Texas giving up 12 points a game. OU's giving up 10 points a game. Texas gives up less yards on the ground, but OU has a slightly higher run defense differential. 64, minus 64 yards. So they're giving up minus 64 yards with their opponent's average. We're giving up minus 59 yards with our opponent's average. Texas gives up less yards through the air and has a better passing differential. Minus 31 to OU's minus 19. OU allows 2 less points per game, but Texas has a better scoring differential. Minus 17 to OU's minus 15. Texas with 13 sacks on the season, OU with 9. So Texas statistically a little bit better. Maybe more than a little bit better than Oklahoma defensively. Here's where I think it really starts to separate when you look at statistics. Strength of schedule. We're basing ours off the Sagarin ratings. Texas has a 72.8 rating on Sagarin. Oklahoma has a 62.8 rating. And then here, we really get difference. Average opponent strength of schedule. Texas 69, Oklahoma 65. So Texas opponents' strength of schedule is higher than Texas's opponent's record this season is 17-8. Oklahoma's opponent's records 13-12. Both teams have turned the ball over 4 times. OU has taken it away 4 more times than Texas has. OU with 12, 10 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. Texas with 8 forced turnovers. Just looking at raw statistics, before you factor in strength of schedule, really close matchup. And then you start factoring in strength of schedule, and things start to tip a little bit towards Texas. Again, just from a statistical perspective, the cool thing about statistics is it can show us what has happened in the past. It could show us what we might glean from that information, what we might expect from that information. But what it can't do is predict anything that's going to happen on that field. We don't know who's going to make a play that doesn't normally make a play. We don't know which coach is going to make a huge mistake that they normally wouldn't make. We don't know which players may or may not get injured. We don't know which way the ball's going to bounce if the ball touches the ground. We don't know any of that stuff, and neither of those statistics and ratings. And in this Red River Shootout, it's always been the case that you can kind of just chunk all that stuff out the window. It doesn't really matter. We've seen some really, really good Oklahoma teams lose to some not so great Texas teams. And we've seen some good Texas teams lose to some not so great Oklahoma teams. We'll have our final thoughts on this Red River Shootout. We'll have 4 keys for Texas and a prediction tomorrow on Prediction Friday show. That's 12 noon Central. Generally, not sure if it'll be 12 noon Central tomorrow. I might do it a little bit earlier. See how that goes. Random college football thoughts, and these aren't random. None of them really have been random. They're all about the Red River Shootout. We've been talking all week. What makes the Red River Shootout so great? And we've talked about how the Cotton Bowl makes it uniquely better. Talked about how the State Fair of Texas makes it uniquely better. I think the rivalry itself is just uniquely better. Texas holds a slight edge in this series, 63 wins to 50 losses, 5 ties for a 53% win percentage. Oklahoma, Michigan is real close to that, 51% in favor of Michigan. Iron Bowl, Bama leads that one, 56% win win percentage. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Army Navy is like crazy close, 50.4% in favor of Navy winning percentage. So all these rivalry games that you always kind of see Red River Shootout stacked up against. You know, Texas usually anywhere between 2 and 4 on that list right there, depending on who you're talking to, depending on what list you're looking at. Which I don't understand. Someone's got to help me understand why it's just the de facto answer that Ohio State and Michigan is the best rivalry in college football. Like, I need some hardcore evidence that that's the fact. You talk about all those different games. Assume we're talking about those 4 games, and those 4 games are generally considered some of the best rivalries. I think the one cool thing about the Texas rivalry that the other ones don't have is it's the border war. It's 2 border states separated by the Red River. Texas hates Oklahoma. Like, literally, the state of Texas hates the state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma hates the state of Texas. The players hate each other. The fans hate each other. I was on with old man Nate last night, and we were talking about the Red River Shootout, and he made a comment that, you know, he doesn't hate Texas fans. He knows a lot of really good Texas fans. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, I hate Oklahoma fans. And I don't mean that like personally. I just hate the fact that there's Oklahoma fans, and I hate that I have to look at Oklahoma fans. Personally, I could hang out with probably some Oklahoma people. Maybe. Crazy ass story while we're talking about sort of the hatred and the Red River Shootout. A buddy of mine, I'm hesitant to call him a buddy, friend of mine, longtime friend, met this guy because of Texas football. Literally met this guy at a tailgate in Austin. He's a season ticket holder. He's got a tattoo of the Longhorns on his arm. Just as big a Texas fan as I am. And I don't know what happened to this guy, but around 2018, 2019, somewhere around in there, dude lost his shit, man, and gave away all his Texas stuff. Said he just couldn't deal with it anymore, just couldn't handle being a Texas fan anymore. It was just too disappointing. And I get that. I can certainly relate to that. But this dude went out and put a bunch of money down on a bunch of Oklahoma Sooners shit and is now an Oklahoma Sooners fan. And the funny part is this cat will post, he'll like repost stuff on Facebook from like games that happened years ago when he was an actual season ticket holder for the University of Texas. So maybe that's why I hate Oklahoma fans. I don't know. They stole my friend. We just talked about a lot of traitor stuff going on in this rivalry. You got Texas players playing for OU. Kids out of Texas playing for OU. The Texas players at the University of Texas don't like that. Those cats are traitors. You got the Oklahoma side. Darrell Royal, one of Texas's greatest coaches, was a Sooner. You got your occasional Oklahoma kid that comes down across the Red River to play football at the University of Texas. You got families that are divided by this rivalry. You know, around DFW, for being in Texas, it's pretty big time Oklahoma Sooner territory. So there's a ton of family. That's because there's nothing in Oklahoma. I mean, you can't even, like, if you're gonna work in an office building, you can't even find a job like that in Oklahoma. Got to go to Texas. Closest place is Dallas. You got the OU fans with the horns down all year long, no matter who they're playing, what the score is, what sport it is. Got Texas fans always telling everybody what time it is and OU sucks. There was kind of a brief and odd ceasefire late this summer that kind of crept into football season a little bit because of all the bullshit with the Big 12 commissioner and the Hateful Eight and the Big 12 deputy commissioner. But that wore off really quick about 6 p.m. on September 30th when Oklahoma finished their game. The shit talk on Twitter has been steady and harsh all week long. So the border war aspect of this is what, again, makes it uniquely better than any other college football rivalry. One of the other things that makes this thing uniquely better than any other college football rivalry is the tunnel. We've talked about the tunnel a little bit. We talked about the spectacle of the state fair. We've talked about the spectacle of that game itself. And then you talk about the tunnel, and you're really talking about a spectacle inside a spectacle inside a spectacle. And that's like a triple spectacle, and that's unheard of, folks. That's hard to get. I saw a really cool writing from an unknown Texas letterman that was on the 1974 Texas team. And I saw this thing years ago. Saw it on a college football message board. And it was so vivid and so detailed that it took me right back to the one time I got to take a pregame trip down that tunnel. And so as we've been talking Red River Shootout and we're talking tunnel, I had to go find this thing, and I found it. It's a long read, but it's worth it. I'm going to read it to you guys, so bear with me. But what I want you to do, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that you're there. I want you to see the sights in your mind. I want you to smell the smells in your mind. I want you to hear all the sounds in your mind. I want you to feel the environment around you in your mind. It's probably take us a couple minutes. Here we go. Unknown 1974 Texas letterman writes about the tunnel. When you're given the final word by the TV guy to leave the locker room and head down the short flight of steps to the top of the tunnel, you step out into a surreal, confusing world of childish taunts and many an inverted hook'em being hurled from the walkway above. Stadium security personnel in cheap windbreakers and several members of the Dallas PD man the long tarp-covered gate behind you. You recognize a couple of the motorcycle cops that led the police escort through the streets of Dallas a couple of hours ago. An officer smiles as he gives you a quick salute and a hook'em. You return the salute and mouth a quick thank you to the officer. We're told by the TV guy to wait at the top of the ramp. There's no breeze. It's hot. Someone steps out of a black limo just outside the gate and is quickly escorted by Texas DPS troopers through the gathering and hurried down the ramp. Must be a governor or a senator, or maybe it's Willie. You can't really see over the glare of all the glistening white helmets shining in the October sunshine. The smell of diesel fumes, horse crap, and fried food wafts through the air, mingling with the sulfur smell of residue from the Roughnecks shotguns and Smokey's pregame cannon shots. You can always smell the state fair. The ticketless orange-clad well-wishers behind the chain-link gate, trying to get a quick look or a finger shake from a player or coach, are the only friendly voices you hear at that end of the Cotton Bowl. Get after him, Daryl. Go Horns. Anybody got a ticket? Can I have your chin strap? There's no OU sucks chance. These were the days before that sentiment became the norm. Strangely, above the yelling, the dull din of bus engines, police motorcycles, and the screaming siren from a ride over on the Midway, you can hear the clicking of the candy wrapping machines in the saltwater taffy booth just across the walkway beyond the gate. You've been taught to keep your focus. Look toward the light at the bottom of the tunnel as you move slowly downhill. You're wedged so tightly together that your feet are barely touching the ribbed, dirty concrete below. It's like you're slowly floating down the ramp, suspended among your fellow team members. You're in the shade of the tunnel now, beneath the stomping, screaming Sooner fans in the south end of the stadium. It's cooler, but you're having trouble catching your breath. You can't help but steal a glance at your opponents as they assemble and begin to move down the ramp on the opposite side. You've seen them all through pregame warm-ups, exchange subdued good luck wishes to a misguided former high school teammate that wandered across the Red River. But suddenly, this instant is etched forever in your mind. The crimson helmets with the white interlocked OU really piss you off at this moment, and the bile rises in the back of your throat. You feel like you might lose your steak and scrambled eggs you ate 4 hours before in the quiet banquet room at the Hilton Inn. You don't want to puke on your face mask or your teammates' back. Instead of letting the remnants of your pregame meal fly, you choke it back and begin to yell out an unintelligible, guttural sound. Your teammates join in, and the sound reverberates in your helmet. Your mouth is dry. Your chest is pounding. All of a sudden, your uniform is too tight. You feel enormous. You think of a cup of ice water. A huge groundswell of noise begins to engulf you as you move closer to the light, louder and louder. You're glad you have your helmet on, not because you think that one of those overserved, jeering Okies will lob a half-eaten Fletcher's corny dog at you, but you feel secure and impervious when you manage to reach your hand up and snap your chin strap snugly as you move into the sunlight at the bottom of the ramp. You realize then how much you've been sweating as the swirling breeze on the floor of the stadium finally gets to the back of your neck and cools you ever so slightly. The roaring sound echoing in your helmet reaches what you think to be a crescendo as the TV guy tries to hold back your screaming, snarling teammates. You look around and the sudden reality hits you. This is it. This is the last time you'll ever experience this feeling as a player, and what you have grown up knowing is the greatest football contest in the universe. You may get a chance to walk the ramp again, but not wearing this uniform with these guys against those guys. Tears well up in your eyes A huge lump rises in your throat as you begin to hear curses being hurled at the TV guy to let you go. Just let us run out on that crappy turf one more time. You hear TV guy yell something about the World Series game being nearly over and to just hold on for one more minute. And one of your larger teammates instructs TV guy to perform a physically impossible task with a baseball. We surge forward, frenzied and frothing. I look toward Coach Royal, who has appeared just to my left. He looks to be alone in his thoughts. His jaw is set. He has to hear the taunts of traitor and the like directed his way. I feel more content for the red-clad fans leering over the tunnel walls as they wave red and white pom-poms at my coach's face. I wish the fat woman would fall over the wall as she screams, "Daryl, you ain't shit." He is perturbed at the delay. He gives us a simple nod, and the human dam breaks. TV guy's left to fend for himself. He may have been trampled. We don't really care at this point. Smokey sounds out a huge cannon blast. A perfect smoke circle rises above the sweltering field. You imagine a football sailing right through the center of the white smoke circle as you see it emblazoned against the clear blue North Texas sky. You hear the band playing Texas Fight at what seems like an impossibly fast tempo, an ungodly loud volume in your helmet. You run. Your teammates are jumping all over you. You may cry. You aren't alone. The swelling noise is louder than ever, and you get to run out into the sunlight one last time. You'll never get to feel that way again. So again, that was a writing from a 1974 Texas Longhorn letterman, and a really good one. What's interesting is the first time I read that, I remember that tarp-covered gate he was talking about. Right at the top of the tunnel, there's just a chain link fence. Basically, the tunnel goes from the street level all the way down to the field level, and there's just a chain link fence. Probably seen it. Notre Dame has something similar at their stadium. And I know you remember I know you understand the tarp part. It's just like a clear tarp, so people can't see in, but people really can see in. I remember that slick concrete ramp from 1995 when I got a chance to walk down that tunnel. For the Sooners and the Longhorns, it's all going to begin and end in that tunnel on Saturday. And to me, that really makes this rivalry uniquely better than any other college football rivalry. Horn Takes Traveling Roadshow update. Still no credentials, folks. I definitely waited too long to get this done. We're going to head that way this evening, credentials or not. And if not, we'll improvise. I'm going to try to sneak my camera and my little monopod into the fairgrounds. We'll see how that goes. If you guys see me, say hello. We'll do a quick interview. Want to try to interview some folks this week. I meant to do it when we were in Tuscaloosa, and I just did not do it. I got too caught up in the tailgating and meeting new folks and just the atmosphere of the quad. I didn't act like I've been there before, and it's because I hadn't been there before. But I have been to the Red River Shootout before. So hopefully we can get some interviews with some folks, get some of that sound on the show sometime next week. Tomorrow is Prediction Friday. We'll have those Trace Ocher games for week 6. 4 keys and a prediction for the Texas game. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find it at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com as well. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. Hey, Red River Shootout Week. You guys get hooked. We'll see y'all at the fairgrounds on Saturday. We'll see y'all at the fairgrounds on tomorrow. Hook 'em, baby. Let's beat those Sooners.